joining us today. My name is Caleb Hong. I'm the lead pastor here at Faith United Methodist Church. We're so glad you could join us for our second Summer Singspiration Benefit Concert. You try to say that 5 times, it'll be quite a challenge, but this was an idea that was birthed just a couple of years ago, and the idea was to bring choirs together from the area, folks who love to sing, give them a reason to sing some fun songs, and then have a benefit that's a part of it. So this year we have a beautiful choir that's come together. They've been practicing all throughout the summer, and our benefit will be, as you hear a little bit later, for Elim Christian Services. Without further ado, let me turn it over to the choir and to our director, Rolf Moen.
Thank you so much for coming today. Like Pastor Caleb said, he kind of was born a couple of years ago and started last summer, and so this is kind of second annual. You heard a chorus by obviously one of the greats of the Baroque period, which kind of dates in the 1600s into the 1700s. Handel was German-born and received all his training pretty much in Hamburg, and then moved to Italy, and that's where he kind of became the musician he was and composer. But he was a child prodigy, connected to the church with his parents and whatever else, and he actually wrote motets, which are kind of on this order. It's a singular piece. It's not an opera or an oratorio, a big work, but he wrote weekly for church services at the age of 9. Okay? No, that's prodigy world. And he also wrote three sonatas at 14, and then eventually, came to England, became a naturalized British citizen, and of course that's where he did all of his main writing. So, again, wrote operas, oratorios. He wrote more than 40 operas in 30 years of writing in England. So that's more than one a year. And operas are, my wife is in symphony chorus. Some of those scores that they're standing up in the symphony hall are, about 3 inches thick. They almost have trouble holding them up for all the time they're standing. And he just kept moving them out. So he's a great composer from England. I'm going to touch on the next number, Amazing Grace. One of the most familiar, well-known Christian hymn. The words written by an English poet, and actually a clergyman over time, John Newton, in the mid to late 1800s, and it was actually once he became a pastor, kind of a part of the pastorate of a church, it was written to illustrate a sermon he was giving on New Year's Day in 1773. So that's when the words we know, were born, so to speak. And it's even that far back, they probably just, if it was at all written out or anything, they just probably chanted it. There probably weren't even any notes to it at that point in time. Over time, there have actually been 20 plus melodies connected to those words. Now, we know, most of us know pretty much the one that's, every tune in the hymnals you have little names of the name of the tune. And it kind of locks it in as far as this is what this tune is. And it's called New Britain. And that's what, da 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 da. Okay, that whole framework of the melody is called the New Britain. It was actually connected to a composer, William Walker, and it was 1835 that those notes were connected to the poem that was written, virtually a half century before. Anyway, so just a strange, time lapse before we really got the one that was more familiar. Newton, just a quick element of his life, he was kind of a rough-cut kid. At 11, he started going on ships with his father, who was a ship's captain or part of the ship, and he did that for a good number of years. Was quite a, if you want to call him a rapscallion. He really defied all the orders of the captains and whatever else. He would use foul language. He would play tricks. He'd write poems and songs that would have cutting kind of remarks, and half the time he was, like in the brig or whatever. So he was just totally outside of the realm of what you would think, oh, this is a great hymn writer. But the transformation came when on a trip, an incredible storm hit, virtually to the point of probably everybody on board was thinking they were not going to make it, but they did. And he just kind of had a realization that there's something better in life than creating havoc. And he went back, actually still worked in the shipping industry, and actually, interestingly enough, part of the shipping was slave trade from Africa. And yet he turned that all upside down and became a strong abolitionist. And finally, Britain wrote the law in 1807 for that country, where he ended up. And virtually in the year of his death, they locked in, there's going to be no more of this, as far as trading and movement like that. He became a pastor at a church. There's a hymnal from back then, Olney Hymns. Olney was the town he was from. And that's the church that it was associated with. There were 345 hymn words in that book. And it was only words. It was just the poems and the words in there. And he wrote the words for 240 of those 340 hymns, 45 hymns. So that's on the order of what Handel did with operas. He was a poet, and he just filled the realm of those hymns. Our Library of Congress has a collection of 3,000 versions of and songs inspired by Amazing Grace. Different. There's something different about them. 3,000 of them in that. And of course, popular artists that have sung this. Memory coming out here. So Judy Collins, Joan Baez in the 60s, Mahalia Jackson back in the late 40s and 50s. Incredible version coming out in that time. And then we go into the 70s and we have the Byrds, B-Y-R-D-S, okay. Elvis Presley, Andy Williams, Willie Nelson. And then in 1992, the Lemonheads. Okay. You can look them up. Well, this is the fun part. And then, how many of you remember the 2005? Now that's 9 years ago. 2005 recording by Dropkick Murphys. I do enjoy kind of digging, and I go to second and third levels, just seeing what comes up in terms of historical element and everything else. But anyway, it's just a wealth of history in this tune. It's interesting. Take it all to 2014. Right now, it's not quite in the can yet, but there's a movie in an independent company, Inspirita, I think it is, or Inspirity, that is on the tail end of putting out a movie that is called Newton's Grace. And it was scheduled for coming out, and it'll be DVD, and possibly whether it'll be in theaters or not, but maybe on HBO or one of those, any of those channels. Supposed to come out in the fall of this year, but then I saw one other little connection that said looks like more like January of 15. And they were calling in people to do work on some filler scenes. They were out in the East Coast, they're working out in North Carolina. And I virtually got a post from the theater company saying, we need people to fill non-acting, crowd parts and whatever else to finish off some little segments. So they're still working at it. But then secondly to that, downtown Bank of America Theater, I think it's October 9th for about a month, the Broadway, pre-Broadway premiere of the musical Amazing Grace. So very, very connected to that whole song and everything else. It's the story of John Newton. There's actor, I'm forgetting the name of the actor that's scheduled to be in it, but Tony nominee Josh Young. He's done various shows around the country. So I'm immediately thinking field trip. Field trip to see Amazing Grace. Anyway, enough about that. Here is Amazing Grace. Thank you. And needless to say, that's one of many, many choral arrangements of Amazing Grace, and there are just that many that are excellent writings and just little shifts in how the composer or arranger puts it together. Next piece, a wonderful gospel tune, Glenn Burley. If the other famous one, this isn't maybe as famous, but has been done recently, was done as an Illinois all-state piece by a chorus of about 300 high school singers just last year. I know choirs at a couple of schools in the district have done it, and certainly around the state. Faithful over a few things. The one that probably is more familiar is one called "Order My Steps." That's also Glenn Burley, and we've done an arrangement here of that that tune as well. But he's a renowned composer, conductor, a lot of clinician work with his style of writing and everything, and a pianist. And he's really taken one verse. Now, really, it's one of two verses, because Matthew 25, verse 21, and Matthew 25, verse 23 are the words, that come out of this. So, as you hear them, a few faithful things, and whatever, it really is verbatim. And I've certainly read it, and we've used it in the church here. And so I started going, okay, here's the verse, and I see posts for 25, 21 and 25, 23. I'm going, and I said, oh yeah, that's right. It's the same thing. It's the people coming back to the Father, and whether they've done well with their money, and helped out and make things grow, whatever. Anyway, the text kind of speaks to not that we don't obviously have to do things that are so grandiose. The few things, and they don't have to be huge things. Big thing is helping others, spread some good cheer, send a letter, send a note, help a neighbor, volunteer where needed. All those things kind of fold into the picture of the text here. So here's faithful over a few things. I'll introduce our players who now are going to get to work. We did some things that were more choral with the piano. Could have had them on the Amazing Grace, but in fact, you heard Patty on that one, kind of a great gospel piano arrangement too. But on guitar, Ray Lampkin. On bass, Greg Gales. I got see if my over 50, actually over 60 brain has a spasm here. And on drums, Tony Richardson. These three are part of the combo for this church for the contemporary service, and we are so glad to have them to be able to play on about four of the numbers of the next numbers coming up. So here's faithful over a few things.
Unto death.
that is a real gospel arrangement, no question. Powerful lines. Last year we did a John Rutter piece. I'll probably do a John Rutter piece every year. We happen to do this. We've done a couple things with the church choir here. But he's no doubt, and many comments about it, no doubt one of the most prolific British composers, certainly of our time, and in terms of framework of time and style, probably not the total compendium of some of those writers back in the 1600s, 1700s, but he first visited the U.S. in 1974 and directed a performance of his now famous Gloria, the single work. It was in Omaha, Nebraska. It was the premiere of that work. Another of his larger works is Requiem, and of course there are umpteen requiems by umpteen different composers, and Brahms' Requiem is probably the most prolific of all requiems, but his Requiem had its world premiere with the Fox Valley Festival Chorus right here in Illinois in 2002. So I mean, and of course, what happens sometimes on those world premieres, they asked him to write it. And so it was commissioned, a commissioned work. A frustrating part of his life prior to 2002 occurred from 85 to 92, so there was a swing of 7+ years, when he was diagnosed with, now, don't correct me if I pronounce it wrong, myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is chronic fatigue syndrome. And he flat out had to tell everybody, I can't do any more commissions because I don't know if I'll finish the piece in time for your concert, because so many of those things are targeted at a concert and they're set up a year ahead or 6 months ahead or whatever. Would you write an arrangement of Amazing Grace? Would you write an arrangement of, whatever? And so he flat out had to go on his own pace and did a lot of writing that didn't have any attachments, and of course he still brought things out, but had to kind of put the brakes on for a while. This Is the Day is a piece that was composed for the wedding of Prince William and Catherine Middleton, and was first performed at Westminster Abbey on the day of the wedding, April 29, 2011. So here's This Is the Day.
The Lord hath made.
Thank you. We move to a spot where we'd like to have a little bit of a picture of our benefit foundation. And I think we have someone here from the Elam Services. Yeah? Okay.
Thank you so much for making the decision, Pastor Caleb and the rest of the church staff, and as well as the folks in the community, for remembering the mission of Elam Christian Services. We'll have a short video that will be shown in just a few minutes, and I just want to make a few remarks before that. My name is Bob Marsh. I'm the Vice President of Advancement and Outreach, which is a title that probably means very little to anyone here, but it's simply to go out into the community to build partnerships, but also to build outreach to communities that are outside of the Elam area and even around the world, which you'll hear a little bit about in the video. We are all each called to join with each other and with God to participate in His mission. Now, Jesus proclaimed that the kingdom has come near, and He invited all who would listen to repent and to join and to enter into His new way of life. In 1 Corinthians 3, the Apostle Paul wrote, "The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and they will each be rewarded according to their own labor. For we are co-workers in God's service." We are co-workers in God's service. Who does this calling include? Who, if anyone, does it exclude? If we give this any thought, we quickly realize that no one is exempt from God's call to co-labor with Him and with others to build His kingdom. But what about people with severe and profound mental and physical disability? What is their role? The short answer is that it depends on God-given individual gifts and abilities. But what about someone who's unable to speak with words or care for himself or herself? Melissa has been a student at Elam, or became a student at Elam, when she was just 3 years old. She recently graduated. She's now 22. Melissa has severe cerebral palsy. She does not have much control at all of her arms and legs, and a little bit with her head. Others must care for all of Melissa's physical needs. She cannot speak with words, but with the help of a communication device and a switch that's attached to her headrest that acts like a mouse, she can tell jokes. She can ask for help from her family. She can communicate. And she can pray out loud, which is what she did at the graduation that we had just this past May. Melissa and her family love to go out. They especially love to go to dinner together. Her parents tell me that Melissa is a magnet. Almost without fail, people will come up to her and interact with her and leave with their spirits lifted. There's something very special about Melissa. And it's because of her infectious smile and her beautiful spirit. God's Spirit resides in Melissa and mysteriously works in her, through her, to communicate His love to others. I have seen God's Spirit work in many others similar to Melissa. People with severe disabilities that if we did not pay attention, if we just passed them by, we might not even notice the great and tremendous gifts that God has given to them. In Ephesians 2:10, it says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Elam's mission is to equip people with different abilities to achieve their highest God-given potential, so they may live their lives glorifying Him. The same calling for each and every one of us. In a few moments, we will watch a short video about Elam and about the Elam difference. As you watch it, I invite you to prayerfully consider how each and every individual you see has a purpose and a calling in God's kingdom. You'll have an opportunity to give financially, but please prayerfully consider how you might become a co-worker with someone with disabilities in building God's kingdom. Thank you.
Welcome to Elam. Thank you for taking the time to join us today in this beautiful setting. And I can tell you that as beautiful as this setting might be, what happens at Elam is even more beautiful. I want to share with you a few things today about where we are in our ministry. Some of the things that come out of our vision, which is to be a resource center of best practices. Your partnership in that is making a dramatic difference. Our vision to be a resource center of best practices is based on our core values. And those core values are very simple, very profound, and I think they have a very important role to play in Elam's footprint in God's kingdom. Our first is that we are Christ-centered. We're Christ-centered in everything we do. It flows through our blood. It's kind of like our lifeblood here at Elam. When you see the teachers interacting with students, when you see the adult staff interacting with adults, you see Christ in action here at Elam, and that's really important to us. Second, we believe that every individual, whether it's those who serve here or those who are being served here, have value and purpose in God's kingdom. That's a powerful reality. That really shapes everything we do, and it shapes the way we view the world and our place in the world. Finally, God has called us to be a learning and sharing community. He calls us to learn from each other and to share what we've learned with others. And we've discovered this because of our exciting intersection with ministry partners around the world. With our core values serving as a foundation for our vision of being a resource center of best practices, I want to share with you how your partnership is helping us make a dramatic difference in God's kingdom. First, let me begin by sharing with you an opportunity here on our campus in Illinois. We are now serving more children and adults than we've ever served. We serve over 500 children and adults on our campuses in Illinois. And beyond that, in our discovery centers in Christian schools around the country, we're serving over another 400 children. And your partnership with us on a global front allows us to serve even greater numbers of folks through the sharing that we're doing with our ministry leaders. Another opportunity that I'm really excited to share with you about, and that opportunity is that Elam has been given children and adults with higher and higher needs. And we've been called to serve them and meet their needs. And through your partnership and the investment that our staff is making in best practices, we're able to meet those needs and provide for those students and adults in the very best way we can. A final opportunity I'm excited to share with you today is the opportunity that God has laid before us on the global front. God has given us opportunities to partner with ministry leaders in Zimbabwe, in Thailand, in Rwanda, in Nicaragua, and in India. And we've been able to share with them what we've learned here. And the ironic thing is that they've been able to share with us so many things that we can learn from them. And the partnership is blossoming, and we're thankful for it. Your support is so important to helping us make the Elam difference. I want to thank you for your partnership and for the way that you so faithfully prayed for Elam, supported Elam, and encouraged us. But as we face these new opportunities, I want you to know that your support, that your prayers, and that your partnership are still needed. Together, we can make the Elam difference for hundreds more children and adults with special needs. And we can do that locally, nationally, and globally.
Stevie Wonder, obviously prolific writer over the years, starting in the 60s and through the 70s. But this was his third #1 hit of the Billboard charts. And of course, one of the other main ones was Superstition, okay? And the first one, I can't remember the title of it, but was way back when he was like 11, 12 years old, and he was discovered and put out, it's kind of like the Michael Jackson, his meteoric start. Well, Stevie Wonder had a hit tune. I'm not remembering the name of it right now, but he's had 3 #1s. And those two, Superstition and this You Are the Sunshine, happen to be on the same album. Okay. We're back in the album days. Anyway, numerous other compositions rose to the top of the charts. Sir Duke, fantastic piece. Isn't She Lovely for his daughter Aisha. Ebony and Ivory with Paul McCartney, and on and on. So that's not a song. On and On is not a song title. He went on and on. I know it's in some song, but just his greatness in music, the music world did just that. It just kept moving. And lately, he's more collaborated. And he still does things on his own and performs in all kinds of shows and festivals and award shows. But he right now has collaborated with what am I trying to get to? Numerous artists where they ask him to come in and either play or sing or combination, or he does producing and everything else. He had 22 Grammy-winning Grammy Awards for songs, the most ever. And I kind of dug to find out if there was somebody else that had overtaken him, but the most ever by a solo artist, 22 Grammy Awards. Academy Award for Best Song, I just called to say I love you, which came out of the movie The Woman in Red. So again, even the Academy. And of course, Lifetime Achievement Award along the way. Just a very special individual in American music history. Next song up is Go to the Broadway Side. And for this concert, I'd like to try and touch on a lot of different connections to music, a lot of different periods, styles along the way. So the Fantastics, written by Tom Jones. No, not that Tom Jones. No, not the shoot, I can't even think. In Las Vegas, yeah, I couldn't pick out the Tom. The Las Vegas Tom Jones from Britain. But Tom Jones, the collaborator with Harvey Schmidt, who have done various musicals along the way. Fantastics was way back in the 60s. It still is, when you compile all the shows of off-Broadway, Broadway, and the West End, which is the English connection to theater, it is the longest ever running musical by far. Now, guess how many times it ran, if you haven't already looked this up. First of all, its run lasted 42 years. Yeah, unbelievable. 17,162 performances, the world's longest running musical. Compare that to a couple of the others near the top of the list. Now remember, 17,000. Jesus Christ Superstar had 3,357. It's now, and that's down the list. It's at 13th. And Wicked just moved into 14th place right behind that with 3,304. So whether that'll keep rolling through across the country and in Broadway over time, who knows? Now, if you just take Broadway shows only, Phantom of the Opera has 10,800. So, I mean, just those little comparisons of these unbelievable shows along the way. Interesting thing, fantastic producers spent $900 on the set. Now, some of you that are in theater of one kind or another, I mean, it's kind of like you chuckle because it's just crazy. I wouldn't mind having $900, but to build a whole set in this day and age, $541 on costumes. And at a time when even then, major Broadway, this was off-Broadway, smaller show, okay, but major Broadway shows were costing $250,000. And nowadays, that's just a drop in the bucket. Because Spider-Man, which started in 2011, called Spider-Man, Turn Off the Dark, is the secondary title. It opened in June of 2011 with a budget that hit $75 million, okay? And it actually kicked up to 79 with inflation, figured in. And then it closed early this year. And then the quote I found was, failing to give investors back their money. Ooh, yeah, that's right. Guess how much? A loss of $60 million. Not the smartest, choice of, well, if they wanted to see it, I guess if you got a whole lot of money, let's show this, some probably didn't mind, some may have gone belly up, I don't know. In a much simpler time and space, Tom Jones and Harvey Schmidt obviously combined to create a wonderful small-scale musical that gave us probably the more familiar tune, Try to Remember, Okay, that's from that show. And also then this second most recognizable song, Soon It's Gonna Rain. One of those ballads that just kind of melts from line to line. Okay, NKOTB. Acronym for New Kids on the Block. And yeah, wow, really stretching the bounds of choral literature now. Okay. Well, you know, there's a sense behind it. Maybe it's my crazy sense, but New Kids on the Block began performing in '84. Obviously a young boy band, okay? From that time till now, they've sold over 80 million records worldwide. One of the world's best-selling groups of all time. 84, they disbanded in 94 and could not create a workable plan to get back together until they secretly did so in 2007. So much so that nobody, well, I suppose a few people way inside knew, but until they released a CD and then, of course, announced a tour. And it was just like, whew, explosion again. And in 2011-12, saw them tour with the Backstreet Boys, so they used the acronym of NKOTBSB. Boys and Backstreet Boys, okay? So have fun with the letter game. This song was taken from their top 10 Christmas album called Merry Merry Christmas. And if you purchased the single that also came out in 1989, it would have this one for the children on one side, and you were treated to the wonderful side B selection entitled Funky Funky Xmas. I haven't heard it, you know. I don't know, go online and see if I can buy the buy the single back from the. Anyway, the album itself went double platinum. Now platinum is a million copies, okay, and so 2 million were sold, probably above 2 million, and they set this album up for the proceeds to go to the United Cerebral Palsy, and so probably, whether $1 or whatever, that was 2 million or more, probably easily going to that group. And I guess, as I said up front, we could say this is our pop song answer to the faithful over a few things with the message that's inside. Meaning, if we are in need of someone, if we are someone in need, we are someone in need of something. We are consoled or made to feel a sense of relief if someone comes to our aid. On the reverse, on the other side, if we aren't in need, then hopefully we find ourselves on the giving side. Having the ability to fulfill a need someone has, and they had that great feeling when they decided to donate. They donated proceeds. So I suspect when they say proceeds, whatever was the profit of that album, so I'm sure it was even more than $2 million. So here is This One's for the Children.
There are some people living in this world. They have no food to eat. They have no place to go. But we are children. We have to learn to love one another.
Definitely the message is there. Final song today, From a Distance. And it's kind of one of those things. Julie Gold is the songwriter that wrote this song. She hasn't had a prolific career as far as where her songs have gone. Some artists, Nancy Griffith from into the 60s, into the 70s basically, was one person that sang a lot of her songs, and various other artists, but this was the big one. And she was a secretary out east and just was writing songs at the side, and a friend of hers said, oh, this one, heard her play it, whatever, and got a hold of Nancy Griffith, and boom, just like that, it was sung. But obviously, a lot of others have. She said that this, as she quotes, that this song is about the difference between how things appear to be and how they really are. And I immediately thought, well, a distant picture, we see pictures of space, up to space, and we see pictures that are taken from space down to Earth, and you're kind of in awe. It's just kind of incredible looking pictures, whether it is. Google takes care of that real easily for us from above nowadays. But it's real, and yet there's a mystery about it. And of course, up close, if you were standing on the moon, it'd be incredible. But to me, my guess is very dusty and very boring. And the element of being there is incredible. But it might not give us as much of a thrill as that distant look. By the same token, sometimes, that's how we look. We kind of see things in a distance and kind of let them pass, and yet we might be able to be a part of them along the way. She invokes us to create a lifestyle that's always moving toward the spectacular, in our daily existence, per se. And I know what we're doing here today, speaks to that. Nancy Griffith, first of many to record the song, including Judy Collins. She's always latched onto some of these things. That group, The Byrds, also did a version of this song. And the most successful, Bette Midler, her recording won a Grammy Song of the Year in 1991. And it was used as a wake-up call, actually, for the astronauts when their first trip on the Mir space station. That was their wake-up call. This song was pumped to them. But again, just that, the words, you'll hear them speak to that framework of how you view things and how you act upon them. We, the singers, musicians, thank you for coming today, and we hope you felt as good about what you have heard from us in the performance, and as you felt in contributing to Elam's program with your donations. We really appreciate your attendance, and hopefully this may be a yearly thing, and we invite you back if that's the case. We'll be pumping it out through the papers, and maybe we'll get that Facebook thing going. No. I'm kind of a neophyte in that world, but anyway, here's From a Distance.
Thank you all so much for coming out. Again, let's give a round of applause for our choir. That was beautiful. I don't know if I've ever heard New Kids on the Block in church. Let's give a round of applause for our accompanist, Patty Lazars. Thank you, Patty. For our band members. For our AV in the back. And then again, one more time. We have a gift here in our community. His name is Rolf Moen. He loves music. He has a breadth of knowledge that's just incredible. Let's just give him one more hand. All right. Thank you, Rolf. Again, thank you all for coming out today. We hope you had a great time. We hope also that you'll stay and have a good time with refreshments. Have a great afternoon. Thanks a lot.